Hello, this week we are incredibly busy on something very secret and very exciting, so we asked Axel to come back in and lend us a hand. Now his double exposure tutorial takes a look at a classic photography technique, and you might also recognise it from the True Detective opening sequence. Okay, so without further ado, here is Axel.
Today, we are looking at creating a double exposure effect, as seen in the titles for the HBO show True Detective. I'm Axel Wilkinson for HitFilm.com, and I will be using HitFilm 4 Pro for this tutorial, but users of HitFilm Express can easily follow along too. This technique relies on the set matte effect, which lets us use the shape of one layer to define the visible portion of another layer. Then we'll combine both layers to create the final image. So we need a green screen clip as our foreground, which defines the shape, and the fill layer that we will drop into that shape. These can be either still images or video, and we will look at both. So let's start by animating some movement into these tree photos. Right-click Trees 1 and make composite shot. Name it Trees Fill and set the duration to 5 seconds. Add the second tree image to the timeline above the first, then open its layer properties and change the blend mode to Multiply. Multiply is useful for letting the background show through light areas of a layer, and will be used repeatedly in this tutorial. Now we are going to create some parallax by animating these two layers at different speeds. On frame 0, enable keyframing for the position of both layers. Move the playhead to the last frame and slide Trees 1 to the right a bit. Slide Trees 2 to the right significantly more, so it moves farther. Create a new grade layer and add a levels histogram effect. Crush the whites down to 0.94 or so to brighten the sky to white. In the media panel, right-click our green screen clip, Suit, and create a new comp named Main Silhouette. Key out the green from the clip. I'm using Chroma Key, but if you are working with Express, you can use color difference keying. Adjust the key as required for whatever footage you are using. Duplicate the Suit layer, turn off one copy, then right-click the other, and select Make Composite Shot. We call this process embedding a comp, and we will use it repeatedly throughout this video. Name the comp Green Screen, and for masks, effects, and transform properties, select Move with Layer. Back in the main silhouette comp, disable the green screen layer, then create a new plane, named Backplane, in a light tan color. Place it at the bottom of the layer stack. Drag the paper image to the timeline just above the plane, and set opacity for paper to 30%. Create a new grade layer to apply the final look we want, and name it Final Coloring. This will sit at the top of our layer stack so it affects all the other layers. Use hue, saturation, and lightness to desaturate the image. Okay, the basic setup we have done so far will be used for both versions of our double exposure. So in the media panel, duplicate Main Silhouette and rename the copy to Main Split. That way we can come back to this point to build the other shot later. In the main silhouette timeline, add the Trees Fill comp we created earlier, placing it above the paper, and set its blend mode to Multiply. Since we already brightened up the sky inside the Trees Fill comp, multiplying blends the image nicely onto our paper backplate. Add the Set Matte effect, which is the core of the double exposure technique. We can select any other layer as the source and choose what channel of that layer is used to create the matte. Set the source layer to green screen and leave the matte source on alpha, and the trees are instantly constrained to the shape of our character using the alpha created by our key. Now we want to add a bit of that foreground character back in. Embed Suit into a comp called Feathered Edge, moving the effects with the layer. Enable the layer, open the key controls, and show the matte. For the chroma key effect, we do this by selecting Matte in the View menu. If you are using color difference keying, then tick the View Matte box. This lets us see the matte our key is creating as a black and white image, which we can now further modify. Add a blur to the layer and turn the radius up to 60. Use Levels Histogram after the blur and crush the blacks to bring the outside edge of the feather in a bit. For HitFilm 4 Pro users, instead of using levels, you can set the Erode tool in the chroma key to -25 or so. Back in main silhouette, disable the feathered edge layer, then duplicate the green screen comp and rename the copy Edges. Enable it, add a Set Matte effect, and select Feathered Edge as the source layer. Set the matte source to luminance and set the blend to subtract. The luminance channels let us define our shape using the white and black areas of the matte image we just modified, so our edges layer will only appear in the bright areas of our feathered edge layer. Subtract inverts this, so the bright areas are removed from the layer. That leaves just the edges of the character laid over the trees to give our double exposure effect. That finishes off the basic double exposure, so now let's create the second version of this technique, the split. Select the main split comp and add the concrete plant as our fill, just above the paper. Apply the Set Matte effect and select green screen as the source. Duplicate suit using Command D or Control D on Windows, then enable one copy and rename it Face. Add hue, saturation, and lightness to the face and desaturate it. Even though final coloring is already desaturating our image, desaturating the layer will change the way that the levels histogram effect, which we will add now, alters the contrast. Crush the blacks to 0.12 and the whites to 0.68, then darken the gamma to 0.52. Then let's restore some detail to the shadows by bringing the black output to 0.14. Embed suit into a comp called Split Feather, moving the effects with the layer. Enable the footage, then open the key settings and show the matte again, like we did before. Now create a black plane over the top of the footage. Earlier, we modified our matte image using a blur. But we can also use planes and masks to add black or white areas to this matte and more extensively alter the shape of the luminance map we are creating. Add a large rectangular mask to the plane to remove the top of the head. Increase the feather strength of the mask to 140 and set feather to in so we have full opacity at the edge of the mask. Back in the main split, hide the split feather layer. Add a Set Matte to the face layer, select Split Feather as the source, and set the matte source to luminance. Now resize and reposition the concrete plant to fit into the head better. Keep in mind where the bottom of our mask is, so the lower edge of our fill layer stays hidden below the mask feather. Set the blend mode for the concrete plant to multiply. Add a levels effect above the Set Matte and crush the whites to blend the sky. Now add a light wrap effect to face, set back plane as the source, and turn the radius way up to 110 or so. And that sorts out our second version, so we can move on to the background details and finishing steps. To add a bit of subtle detail to the background, let's add some stock footage. I'm going to import that footage now, but your project will already have it imported. Add the swirly smoke footage just above the paper and change its blend mode to screen to remove the black and leave only the smoke. I want this to be even more subtle, so let's turn the opacity down to 50%. Select the text tool and drag a box to the left of our character so we can add a name. Type in the name you want to use and select your font and other properties in the text panel. I'm using Arial Narrow at 36 point with letter spacing of 12 and a color sampled from the dark bits of our frame. Select the position tool and reposition it if necessary. Trim the start of the text layer so it begins 2 seconds in. To finish off the shot, we want to animate the scale of the entire thing, except our background. Select all of our layers above swirly smoke, except green screen, and then parent them to the green screen layer. Then open the transform controls for green screen, and at frame 0, enable keyframing for the position and scale. Move to the end of the timeline, increase the scale by 10%, and readjust the position. Since the other layers are all parented, they automatically animate along with this one to give our final movement. Let's use our grade layer to give some final polish to this shot. Add a levels histogram and a vignette. We can use levels to darken up the shadows a bit more by crushing these blacks in to around 0.07. Then we'll soften the vignette up a bit. Increase its size to 2500 by 1500, then crank softness up to 0.73 or so. Now I'm going to use one more effect, which is not available in the free version of Express, but if we take a look at our shot so far, I think we can agree that it's looking pretty good as it is, and it doesn't really need anything else. But we will give it something else using anamorphic lens flare. This effect is available in the Pro Light Flares add-on pack for HitFilm Express users. Add this effect at the top of the effects stack, and set the number of streaks to 2, the threshold around 0.9, and the intensity to 10. Let's darken the shadows a bit more by adjusting the blacks in our levels to finish off our split image shot. You can now either copy or reconstruct the background components, text, and grading into our main silhouette comp to finish it off. And you could try different animation, different grading effects for the final look, or different textures in the background. The main concept I want you to take away is how to use set matte to combine layers into a double exposure. The silhouette and image split techniques we looked at here can be combined to create a wide variety of unique shots. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned to our channel for new tutorials every Tuesday.